Hi, welcome. It's EDSC 551, Legal and Ethical Issues. This is Professor Bobo, and this week we're studying chapters 11 and 12, and I will briefly go over some important facts from those chapters. So I'll be sharing my screen with you this afternoon and going over some important parts. So we're talking about sexual harassment and bullying. In those two, there are two types of sexual harassment. It is a hostile environment, and a hostile environment includes is when sexual harassment occurs and when it's unwanted sexual touching, comments, and or gestures so bad or occurs so often that it interferes with schoolwork, makes a student feel uncomfortable or unsafe at the school, or prevents a student from participating or benefiting from school programs or activities. So these are important things to remember. This type of sexual harassment does not have to involve a threat or a promise of benefit in exchange for sexual favors. This sexual harassment can be from a teacher, a school official, or other students, okay? The second type of sexual harassment is quid pro quo, which is sexual harassment. It means something for something, where benefits are conditioned upon the grants of sexual favors. Quid pro quo is when a school employee causes a student to believe that he or she must submit some unwelcoming sexual conduct in order to participate in a school activity, or that the employee will make an educational decision based on whether the student will or will not submit to the unwelcome sexual conduct. So there are three elements that are really important when we're talking about sexual conduct. The first is the behavior is sexual in nature, or at least related to the person's gender. So this is an important factor, that the behavior occurs in an unequal relationship where one person has more power over the other, physical, psychological, authoritative over the other. And three, the behavior is unsolicited or unwelcome. So these are the three elements that need to be present when we're considering sexual harassment. So this kind of covers many different examples. And if you just, think about this would be, we're talking about the sexist is in nature, it's a sexual in nature. So these are gestures, writings, emojis. These are all things that can fall under this. And it's related to the person's gender. So, since we have different sexual orientations, this could be in either or. That the behavior is an unequal relationship where one person has one power over the other. I mean, that's any authoritative figure for the most part, physical, psychological, or authoritative. So when we look at our students, we look at the physical nature of it. We look at the psychological nature of it. As we're protecting our students. And then when we look at it authoritatively, all those in charge of others, and that the behavior is unsolicited or unwelcome. And this is where it's really hard for people to grasp and understand that if it's unwelcomed or unsolicited, then it's sexual harassment. So you can be in a room with other coworkers, and there's someone in there who feels that what you're saying to the other coworkers is inappropriate, and they don't like it, but maybe the other coworkers are laughing or participating. It can still be deemed as sexual harassment. So this is something to really keep in mind, because this is something that many people forget. They feel like I'm in a company of friends who tend to laugh at my jokes or laugh at my sexual jokes, and then it's overheard by another individual who feels that it's unwelcomed, unsolicited, and they're in the same room, even though they're not being spoken to directly. You're in a shared common space where many of the other employees feel comfortable. And then if we go back to the number 2, physical, psychological, or authoritative, if the person who's doing the talking is an advisor or someone above them, they make a veteran teacher versus a brand new teacher. You know, the brand new teacher to someone who is, you know, new to the school. They're not gonna know you as well. So these are things that can come up. So I know I'm focusing a little bit more about the adults because I think sometimes those are happening more so in our counseling profession. It's our job as well to protect the others and our employees just the same. Excuse me. So it's important for us to consider those things also. Moving on. Okay, so some examples of what sexual harassment, sexual propositions, pressuring students for sexual favors, touching of sexual natures. There's some court cases that went into that as far as student to student, and that, you know, what we do our counseling for is important that they understand that the touching is meets those 3 criteria too. Going back to the 3 criteria, if someone is touching you and you don't like it, and it's that's physical in nature, when the behavior comes and it's an unequal relationship. So, you know, a guy that I'm not comfortable with is, I mean, not me personally, but a student is not comfortable with another student touching him or her, and they're afraid to tell because of maybe like the power, like this is the popular kid, this is this is that. So these are the things that we need to keep in mind and make sure that we're aware of that when it happens. Writing graffiti in sexual nature. In elementary, I see this all the time. Students will make these sexual drawings and pass it. And in elementary, especially in 4 or 5, they're discovering the opposite sex, or they're discovering who, which sex they're attracted to. So this happens when they think something is of a joking nature, or they're learning new things, or they have older siblings that tell them girls like this, guys like that. And then they like someone and they think that that's the way to get their attention. So as counselors, it's our responsibility to make sure that students are aware that those things are not okay. Performing sexual gestures or touching oneself sexually in front of others. We've had that, you know, especially in elementary, discovering your own body parts and what they do and how they're relieving to you. And so then they do it in front of other people. We've had some of our young students discovering their body and then jokingly grabbing other private areas of the same sex or different sex. So this is, you know, it's important for us to be aware and have policy and procedures in place to discuss this. Now in elementary, the first conversation is usually one of explanation, like, do you know what you did, etc. Not to say that on the first time we don't give out discipline. We do give out discipline. Sometimes it could be sent home for the day, sent home for 2 days. It just depends. And it does get put in their record as sexual harassment. And we do talk to the parents and the students about, do you know what that is? And we explain it to them. And we try to get, you know, I usually, as the school counselor, go over and get a clear understanding of, do they understand what it is that they're doing? I try to get where it came from, how they learned about it. Did they see something? Did they watch something? And then we contact the parent and we go from there. And then the discipline is decided by the principal or the dean from where I am. Telling sexual dirty jokes. We do contact, pull the student in, do the same policy and procedure, and we decide whether a consequence is necessary. Spreading sexual rumors or rating other students as to sexual activity or performance, and circulating or showing emails or websites of sexual nature. Okay, so our role is to advocate for students and empower and serve as anchors and sources of strength for individuals and students dealing with issues in sexual harassment in schools. And we want to promote a safe and respectful school climate for all students and provide students with knowledge and support that they need. And that it's an imperative part of our jobs to do this. All right, here's some important court cases. These were highlighted in our textbook. In 1992, the Supreme Court with Franklin versus Joanning County Public School Education decided that out of the violations of their civil rights, students who were victims of sexual harassment have the right to seek monetary damages from their school district. This was the preceding court case, which set the tone for sexual harassment in schools, all right? Then we had David versus Monroe County Board of Education in 1994, when a judge ruled that school districts were not liable for sexual harassment that occurred when a 5th grade boy allegedly made attempts to inappropriately touch another female student. The case made its way to the Supreme Court in 1999. The Supreme Court decided that one sexual harassment among peers had been reported to the school district. They must be held responsible. So you have to have a sexual harassment policy that is reviewed by annually by employees. So this is something that you need to know, and they need to be educated on. And then the Bruin versus Courtright in Central District in 1996, when a 6th grader was sexually harassed by some of her male peers under Title IX. She was able to file charges against the school district teacher and assistant superintendent and receive compensation for the damages. Ultimately, because the school district was made aware of the situation and failed to address it, they were found liable for this incident. So it's important that when it's reported to us that we do the investigation and that we do a full investigation in order to not be liable. All right, so let's go into bullying. School counselors' contribution to students' academic success by fostering a positive school climate. A comprehensive school counseling program includes the prevention of bullying, harassment, violence, and interventions such as conflict resolution. So these are our responsibilities and how they fall for that. In 2016, ASCA revised the position statement that school counselors and the promotion of safe schools through conflict resolution and bullying harassment prevention. And the school counselors must include prevention programs as part of their comprehensive school counseling program to ensure that these programs include training in key skills in peaceful resolving issues such as communication skills, conflict resolution, decision-making skills, development of cultural competencies, acceptances of differences, intervention strategies for bullying and harassment, recognition of early warning signs for violence, prevention intervention services, crisis response, appropriate use of technology and social media, community involvement, parent and guardian and staff education, evaluation of program effectiveness and building positive staff and student relationships, mental health awareness training, and bystander training. So these are all things that we need to make sure that our school counseling program has. And if you take a look at all of these things, I'm sure that you do something. If you think about your school right now, you hit every one of those areas. And you have a program that is highlighted, that your school district highlights, that covers each one of those areas. Now, whether you can get out there as a school counselor and get all of those things, done is another part of it. But we have to have this in order to have a comprehensive school counseling program. So communication skills, SEL. Conflict resolution, a lot of people use conflict resolution programs for that. Decision-making skills, we teach kids how to make solid decisions. That's part of our counseling programs. Developing cultural competencies and acceptance of differences. That's again, tolerance, and we go out and talk about that. Intervention strategies for bullying. Most everybody has adopted a bullying prevention program. Recognitions of early warning signs of violence and prevention and intervention services. We see that mostly in middle and high school, not as much down at the other in elementary. We just call it anger management. Crisis response. What do we do in suicide, things like that? Appropriate uses of technology. We go over and teach the students, and we have a technology component where we teach students how to use technology, what's okay, what's not okay, and then we have blocks to help us get through that. Then we have to evaluate the effectiveness of our program. You know, which ones do we need to highlight? We do that through our school safety plan and building positive staff and student relationships. We do that SEL. There's lots of other programs out there too, where we're bringing in mindfulness and positivity and gratitude, all of that to build those positive relationships with students. Mental health awareness. We have something that talks about the different community resources that we have for mental health, and different strategies, breathing exercises, all of that to help. Bystander training, again, that's another one for the bullying component. So you should be looking at these bullet points and asking yourself, okay, what are the things that my school does? And how can and I should be able to identify all of these areas. And if you're lacking them, then you need to buy more resources or make sure that you include them in your upcoming years. All right. All right. So that pretty much covers chapters 11 and 12 for us. I wanted to also share with you guys the bullying prevention program. I mean, not the bullying prevention program, but our bullying policy, because we have an extensive investigation policy for bullying. And the purpose that we wrote this, I want to say like beginning in 2016, because it wasn't comprehensive, and our school counselors worked together with our director of pupil personal services to go over it. And it highlighted like when bullying occurred, what an employee was supposed to do. So the first part talks about the code and defines bullying for us. It goes into defining cyberbullying as well. And then the next page's intervention was, what does a staff member do? And it says, shall immediately intervene to stop the incident when it's safe to do so. So every school member knows that they have to stop the bullying. When a student submits a verbal or written complaint to a staff member, the complaint should be investigated and resolved according to the site level grievance policies and procedures. This has been okay, so it goes into detail about disciplining the students, to what type of discipline, conducting an investigation, the allegations of it. You have to identify, conduct the investigation, and then do the findings and then consider what needs to happen thereafter. One of these, this has been revised, but there was one point, excuse me, where it was defined that bullying should be investigated within 24 hours. So they've removed that from our policy and procedures. Excuse me, I have a really bad cold. So it was 24 hours for us to be able to investigate that, and that was highlighted in this, but it's been taken out over the years, I guess, as they have updated it. So I just wanted to kind of share with you the extensiveness of our bullying prevention investigation claims procedures for Hawthorne School District. So you would have some familiarity with that, and that you should be able to find something like that within your school district as well to help you know your policy and procedures for bullying. Okay, so for this week, week 6, you have an assignment that is due, which is freedom of expression, and you're to answer those questions for freedom of expression. In this, you are going to answer the questions of explain freedom of expression as it is legally applies to school setting, and what students can say, do, or not say or do as it relates to verbal speech on campus, written assignments on campus, clothing on campus, and off-campus texting and social media. And this will help us kind of go over like where the lines are drawn as far as investigating is what is our responsibility as investigating. So if people are texting at home, is it our responsibility? You'll find the answer to that. Clothing on campus, what can I wear? What can't I wear? What is appropriate? What's not appropriate? Which is why many people have uniforms. And as you can see, I think on our bullying, it was part of the uniform complaint process. You'll tie those together. And then verbal speech on campus, what they can say and what they cannot say. Okay. Thank you so much. Hope you have a wonderful week.